President Cyril Ramaphosa said that he is processing a refund for the buffaloes that were purchased at Phala Phala farm. He said this while speaking to Clement Majatela on 702. Now, before we evaluate the probity of the president's statements or even reflect on them, let's go back and think about the status of the Section 89 panel. As things stand, the Section 89 panel report, if you remember initially, members of parliament said that they were not going to vote in favor of starting an impeachment proceeding because they wanted the issue to be taken to court. Then what happened is that the Constitutional Court rejected the the application to approach the Constitutional Court on an urgent basis to discuss the Section 89 panel report. And then a little bit later, in May of 2023, President Ramaphosa announced that he was dropping his legal challenge against the Section 89 report. And what was said there was that President Cyril Ramaphosa will no longer pursue a legal application to have the Section 89 panel's report into his conduct during the Phala Phala incident reviewed and set aside. And this was said by this president's spokesperson, right? So as things stand right now, that panel report is not reviewed. That panel report is not set aside. As things stand right now, the arguments that were used by members of parliament to say we are waiting for this thing to go through the legal process seem to have either been very hopeful or actually misleading and actually designed to protect their principal from being removed from power just before the ANC conference. So we know that the Section 89 panel report raised some issues, and the issues that it raised are what seem to be being addressed by this story about they're going to give Mustafa a refund. So let's look at what the panel said. The panel said Mr. Fraser alleges the following. This money was brought to South Africa by the president's closest advisor, Mr. Benjani Chauke, from certain Middle East and African countries. The money was not declared with either SARS or the South African Reserve Bank. Mr. Chauke concealed an undisclosed amount of US dollars in one of his couches at his personal residence in Hyde Park. This money was later transferred in a couch to the president's residence at the farm with the assistance of General Root. The money was then transported to the farm with the full knowledge and acquiescence of the president. I'm reading from the Section 89 panel report. Right. And then the panel did an analysis on the information on the source of the foreign currency. And it's important to recognize that this panel was chaired by the former Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo, a decorated legal scholar, a decorated jurist, one of the most respected legal minds in South Africa. So his report is not a trivial report written by, a guy at the taxi rank or something like that. This is written by somebody who has gone through every level of legal scholarship, and as such, his legal findings, even if they are prima facie, should be taken with a great amount of gravity and seriousness. Here's what the analysis of the Section 89 panel report said at paragraphs 96. A comparison between the two versions on the source of foreign currency reveals that 1. Mr. Fraser alleges that Mr. Chauke illegally brought into this country large sums of US dollars from countries such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Morocco, and Equatorial Guinea. The president claims that the foreign currency was the proceeds of sale of a buffalo to a Sudanese businessman. Both, however, agree that foreign currency was in a sofa in the president's private residence at the farm, but differ not on how it got there, but whether it was concealed or stored in the sofa. However, both differ sharply on the source of the foreign currency. Mr. Fraser does indicate the basis of his allegation. Mr. Fraser does indicate the basis of his allegations, nor does he claim that he obtained his information from a source or was advised of this. I think does not. Given the limited power given to the panel, we are unable to verify this allegation. They can only be tested against the version of the president and the probabilities. We think that to take these allegations at face value in these circumstances would be unfair. But the president does not have any personal knowledge of the source of the foreign currency either. As pointed out earlier in this regard, he relies on what he was told by Mr. Ndlovu on the acknowledgements of receipt that Mr. Ndlovu gave him as proof of sale of the buffalo. Then they say something serious. So they say, listen, Fraser has not given us any support for his version per se, but neither has the president. And this is what the president had submitted, legal submissions to this panel. And what they say is that he relied on Mr. Ndlovu's version, but Mr. Ndlovu has not made a statement, sworn or unsworn, confirming the allegations made by the president. Furthermore, the buffaloes are still at the farm more than 2 years after the sale. The president has not told us why Mr. Ndlovu has not made any statement, nor has he explained to us why the buffaloes are at the farm. So this is what the court started saying. Then they entered into what was a very critical aspect of Mr. Ramaphosa's version. They say the following at para 99. In these circumstances, the evidence of the president must be approached with caution. Indeed, there are troubling unsatisfactory features in the explanation of the source of the foreign currency given by the president. We do not propose to list all of these unsatisfactory aspects. It will be sufficient to refer, for example, how Mr. Hazim came to visit the farm, to the acknowledgement of the receipt, storage of the money inside the sofa, how the money entered the border, the fact that the buffaloes are still at the farm 2.5 years after the sale, knowledge of the foreign currency by Mr. Von Wele, and how much was stolen. We will consider each of these aspects below. Then they speak about Mr. Hazim's visit to the farm. On the president's version, Mr. Hazim walked into the farm on Christmas Day of 2019, Merry Christmas, carrying at least an amount of 580,000 in cash. The purpose of the visit was to view animals. On this version, Mr. Hazim came to the farm without any prior arrangement to come and view the animals. Then they asked some pertinent questions. How did Mr. Hazim know that there were buffaloes for sale at the farm? Was the sale advertised? There are further difficulties about the large amount of cash he was carrying. And if he came to the farm without prior arrangement, how did he know that the purchase price would be 580,000 US dollars unless he was carrying more than 580,000 US dollars in cash? Furthermore, there are a number of questions that arise from the money that Mr. Hazim carried. How did he get this huge amount of cash into South Africa? When he entered the country, did he declare to the South African authorities at the point of entry that he was carrying this amount of cash? What is the source of the cash he had in his possession? Did he produce any document indicating the authority from his country to take out this amount of money? How did Mr. Hazim carry this money into South Africa? We find the behavior of Mr. Hazim in carrying more than $500,000 US dollars in cash into South Africa and thereafter transporting it into the farm to be unbusinesslike. We understand that customers pay cash or use money transfer for transaction. Why did Mr. Hazim not pay by money transfer? It is difficult to understand that a foreigner carrying 580,000 US dollars would randomly come on Christmas Day without making prior arrangements. We would have expected that Mr. Hazim would have made arrangements with the general manager or the president to come and view the animals. The farm would make arrangements for someone with knowledge of buffalo to receive Hazim, showed him the animals and negotiated the price and conclude the sale transaction. Yet no such arrangements were made. And yet he was met by a lodge manager whose expertise in buffaloes is not known. Indeed, it is not clear to us how Mr. Ndlovu's expertise in buffaloes. Indeed, it is not clear to us how Mr. Ndlovu knew what buffaloes to sell and what price, and at what price of each. We raise these questions not because it is unheard of a person to buy a parcel of buffaloes at 580,000 US dollars. These questions arise because as a business person, we would not have expected Mr. Hazim Mustafa to go about the country carrying more than $500,000 US in cash. We would have expected him to pay by means of a money transfer. Our concern in this regard must, of course, be viewed in light of the absence of a normal tax invoice. We're raising these issues of how the money entered into the country because ATM has raised these issues in the motion. Right. And then they go here. The ATM referred the panel to a letter from the governor of the South African Reserve Bank, Mr. Hanyano, dated 30 August 2022, addressed to Mr. Shivambu. The governor reports the following allegations in the media regarding the alleged sale of alleged theft of foreign currency. The Financial Surveillance Department, FSD, has requested legal advisors of the president to provide information and details regarding the origins of the foreign currency and the underlying transactions that may pertain to it. The FSD is a department of the South African Reserve Bank, which administers the exchange control regulations and investigate contraventions of these regulations. The investigations by the FSD suggest that the South African Reserve Bank is probably not aware of the sum of 580,000 entering into the country or being reported. We do not know the outcome of this investigation, if it has been completed or how far the investigation has proceeded, nor do we know that any explanation was provided to the FSD for the origin of the foreign currency and the underlying transaction. Well, now we do know what the Reserve Bank said. They say that the transaction was not perfected because the buffaloes were not received. And many people were like, what are you guys talking about? And now it seems as if this version is an attempt to deal with the issues that were raised in the Section 89 panel report without going into the legal scrutiny, because you can just go tell the media, well, we gave him a refund, and that becomes the end of it. I'm really hoping that journalists and media houses actually do their due diligence when it comes to the story and actually ask more robust and tougher questions around some of the things that have been raised, because they have an obligation to make sure that South Africa is informed factually. They have an obligation to fact check, and they have an obligation to do so in a way that is non-partisan and in a way that is non-factional. Because, you know, in America, they talk about non-partisan, but we need to speak about non-factional in the South African context. Now, I want to say some things about the Section 89 panel report and some of the concerns that they raised and what I think about them. The Section 89 panel report said, man, this guy didn't come in here with the paperwork for this amount of money, nor did he seem to declare it at the border. And over time, they have been justified in making that particular statement. And it calls into question the credibility of Mr. Hazim Mustafa himself and the version that was provided by the president. And I think that when they say that the evidence of the president must be approached with caution, there are grounds for them to say that legally, which are sound grounds. Hazim Mustafa had one interview with Sky News. I don't know where Sky News found him.
Hi, nearly 7,000 miles from South Africa's seat of power, and home to a man who's been pulled into its politics. We've been invited to the home of Hazim Mustafa, the Sudanese businessman who has found himself at the heart of what is now known as Farmgate, the political scandal that could see South Africa's president face impeachment proceedings. An independent inquiry recently found that Cyril Ramaphosa may have violated the constitution after a political rival filed charges of corruption and money laundering. The allegations exposed a secret theft of a large stash of foreign currency from his game farm nearly 3 years ago. Ramaphosa says this man is the source of the cash stashed in the couch. Hazim confirms that he paid $580,000 in cash to buy 20 buffalo from Phala Phala farm. It says because of COVID, they were never exported. And now he and his South African wife are making headlines.
I'm shocked for sure why they put it there, why didn't send it to the bank? It's also questions there.
On the 23rd of December 2019, Hazim lands in Johannesburg with $600,000 in cash. 2 days later, on Christmas Day, he drives to Phala Phala farm. He hands over $580,000 for 20 buffalo, then leaves South Africa the next day as Ramaphosa arrives at the farm. Ramaphosa tells staff to deposit the cash, but after he leaves, it's transferred from the safe to the cushions of a couch. According to Ramaphosa, this money was stolen, so the money is no longer there.
Once I gave the money, the ownership of the money has been transferred from me to him, and the receipt is my evidence for the payment. It's by law or by logic sense.
None of this was public knowledge until June of this year. At this point, were you aware that the president was involved in the buffalo sale?
From when I hear the news, this is the first time to really know that he's the owner. Because if you saw the structure, for the farm, it's belonged to trustee, and this trustee I think belonged to his family. There's a copy of the declaration.
Hazim is now cooperating with the South African authorities and says he's handed over his evidence. He shows us the documents, but won't let us film them. So this is a declaration form, Hazim Mustafa Mohammed Ibrahim, OR Tambo International, arrivals A. It's got your date of birth. It's got the time, 23rd of December 2019. You arrived at 5:07 p.m. And you declared $600,000. And as for the man who bought the buffalo, he's ready to take the stand.
Anything to help the justice and to show the truth, I'm here. I have nothing to hide.
And when he was talking to Sky News, he said, here's all of the paperwork. Look at all of the paperwork. I declared this money, etc., etc. The Democratic Alliance wrote to the South African Revenue Services, and the South African Revenue Services said, we don't have any record of this guy declaring this money. That's critical. It means that Hazim Mustafa was showing fraudulent paperwork to Sky News. The funny thing is that Sky News never went back after the DA got this letter from the South African Revenue Service. They never went back to Hazim Mustafa. I'm assuming they know his address in Dubai where they met him. They never went back to this man to actually say, hey, man, SARS is saying that your paperwork is not there. And if the paperwork was indeed there, Mustafa would have said, that's a misunderstanding. Here's the paperwork. And SARS would have actually said, oh, Mustafa sent us the paperwork. It's all good. The fact that Mustafa's paperwork never showed up and SARS said what they said, and the fact that in addition, you have a situation where Mr. Dlovu himself didn't make an oath and make a statement to the Section 89 panel, it really undercuts the credibility of this version. And the fact that this thing, I mean, it's been a year now where on May 22, 2023, they said that they're not taking this issue to the courts. They're withdrawing the review application. I remember being told by some media publications and some legal reporters that no, the Section 89 panel report is faulty in law. No, it has problems in law. And these problems in law were never resolved or taken to a review. That makes me skeptical. That makes me think that those people were just, protecting people that they preferred in the political framework. Sometimes when Jacob Zuma does something, the media is on him. But sometimes when other people do stuff, people look away. In the sale of SAA, for example, was something where I think the media should have been really hard on Pravin Gordhan at the point at which it was revealed that he was making a lot of decisions unilaterally, at the point at which Parliament itself said that they were taking that issue to the SIU, the Special Investigations Unit. They should have been harsher, but they were not. So I think Hazim Mustafa should not be taken as a credible witness, and his version should not be taken as an authentic version. That's not to say that I think that Arthur Fraser's version is 100% correct, but some of the other Fraser things that he said were true, right? That there was money, that it was in the sofas, that the money that came in was not declared. That's already true. And that makes me think that in this particular instance, he may be a more credible witness than somebody who went on to Sky News to lie. So I'm hoping that the South African media can try to get a hold of Hazim Mustafa and actually get the paperwork that he showed to Sky News. I'm hoping that harder questions are asked around this issue, because it does look as if, if you say, well, we gave him the money back, then all of the issues of the transaction is not perfected, and all of the issues around the breaking of various laws which were raised by the Section 89 panel report. And let me go to them right now, what the panel actually found at the end. Right, I have it here. Right, when you go straight to the end, what the findings were of the Section 89 panel were the following. Just give me a second, I'm just getting to it. Right, in light of the information placed before the panel, we conclude that this information discloses prima facie that the president may have committed 2641, a serious violation of sections 96.2a, and section 2642, a serious violation of section 34.1 of PRECA, point 3, a serious misconduct in that the president violated section 96.2b of the Constitution by acting in a way that is inconsistent with his office, and point 4, a serious misconduct in that the president violated section 96.2 by exposing himself to a situation involving a conflict between his official responsibilities and his private business. So that's what the Section 89 panel report found. A report that has never been reviewed. A report that never got its full procedural completeness because members of parliament say that they were waiting for the legal review that then never happened. This is where things stand. Do you believe that there were buffaloes that were sold to Mr. Hazim Mustafa? Do you believe that the money has been given back? I wanted to say the other thing that was corroborated by the media to a degree was that Benjani Chauke actually was going around to the Middle East with the president, and they seemed to indicate that he had lots of money and that he got it from those particular trips. This came out around about the time when there was reporting in News 24 during the ANC elective conference. And I still have that story, and I'll put it up here just so you can see that. So some of the versions that Fraser spoke about, not only that the money was in the sofa, that it was undeclared, and also that it may have come from, countries like, Iran, Saudi Arabia, you name it. They were corroborated by this News 24 article, which seemed to indicate that's exactly where the money was coming from. And they were indicating that Mr. Chauke was actually using that money to try to, get into the top 6 of the ANC. He was ultimately unsuccessful. And there were other people at the conference who were saying there are people throwing money around, et cetera, trying to, win positions in the conference. So these issues were raised and traversed. What do you think, though? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Remember, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Let's grow the channel. Let's have platforms where we can have more honest and authentic conversations, because sometimes the media is afraid. Sometimes journalists, they hope to work in some government department as a spokesperson. And so as a result, they don't always keep it 100. And, sometimes people are on payrolls and stuff. You never know. But we can talk properly on platforms like the internet and hold each other accountable. So please like, comment, subscribe, all of those things. Till the next one. Peace.